what is one piece of advice you have to people who are trying to improve their customer journey?
I've got 3 bullet points. Where is it going wrong? Why is it going wrong? And what should we do to fix it?
Welcome back to another episode of Instant's Click to Buy podcast. Today I'm joined by Dave Powell, CRO researcher at Loop Earplugs. I think you might have heard of them. Dave's journey is in the field of conversion rate optimization, also known as CRO, and has spanned nearly 2 decades, including previous work at Booking.com, among others, and his expertise in qualitative and quantitative methods has been instrumental in driving hypothesis-driven product improvements. At Loop Earplugs, he focuses on optimizing user experience and boosting conversions through strategic testing and analysis. Dave is not only a father of 2, a devoted husband, and a dog lover, but he's also a passionate advocate for embedding experimentation into strategic decision-making. Today, Dave is going to guide us through all the intricacies of A/B testing, experimentation, and what other topics we dive into, offering invaluable insights into how you can optimize your online store for maximum conversions. So, if you're eager to leverage CRO to refine your company strategy and stay ahead of the competition, you're in the right space today. Well, all I can say now is just, Dave, thank you so much for being my guest here today on Click to Buy.
My absolute pleasure, and what an introduction. I believe I'm slightly overwhelmed. Thank you so much. It's really quite something. I mean, I don't think many of us take stock for a moment to have a look at our accomplishments and really look back. So thank you very much for encapsulating that in such a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, of course, I know you digitally online, but I like to make sure the audience can get to know you a little bit before we dive into the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm into many things in this life. You know, nutrition is another side of me that I've recently taken a massive interest in. Metabolic health, also really diving into the real science and how, it's definitely real science we do on websites, but that's where it's taken from, isn't it? It's taken from clinical trials. So always reading about clinical trials as far as nutrition goes, and being a super healthy CRO person.
That's all right. I love that for your personal brand. Some of our episodes, we talk a little bit about marketing and personal branding as well, since that's typically playing into how a lot of companies are marketing themselves, but also interesting to hear our super healthy CRO expert guest today. I love it.
Well, if we're we're all about optimizing websites, we should be optimizing ourselves first, I believe. So
I love that. So maybe in this episode, they'll learn some self-optimization tips as well. If not, we'll make sure we put Dave's contact info so you can follow him for some of those optimization tips as well.
Absolutely. Super cool. I'm going to be sticking to website optimizations for
Sounds
today.
good. Sounds good. But if not, you know where to find him. Well, maybe to kick things off, I know that you've said that you are really into like building strategies. So of course there are best practices, but that's not going to work for every company. But there are, I think, some principles and foundations that might be helpful for brands to know. So I was curious if you could share with us some of what you believe are the principles and foundations of setting up a good kind of A/B testing strategy for a e-commerce company.
Absolutely. I mean, what better question than let's start at the beginning, because I've often found that CRO is bolted on top of certain departments here and there. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it depends on the size of the company, obviously. But I've been around in this industry for obviously quite a while. And for it to really work as well as possible, you do need to copy, the standard procedures. It needs to be a closed environment for running A/B tests. Otherwise, you pollute your data. So, but starting right at the top, I think if you really want to embed CRO in terms of your strategy, look at something that's been referred to as a reverse funnel tree. Every company has a top line target. We really need to make this money, we need to make this revenue. So how about taking a look at your current website and splitting it out into its respective parts? So gather your sessions, your purchases, your revenue, your conversion rate, average order values, and then you can plot it out to say if we can make some conservative estimates, 0.1, 0.5, 1% increase, what will that mean towards reaching our revenue goals? And you will be able to cluster that information and see where you should be operating on your website with CRO first, because it gives you the highest volumes of traffic, the lower conversion rates, you see what it's generating, and then realistically you can plug that into what your strategy is. So you think, this is what we should work on first in terms of CRO, because then it feeds the goal. So that's something that I would really get involved with the data analysts, because this information can be difficult, because in terms of attribution, it's quite a tricky process to do. But believe me, when you've got it, when you understand it, you understand the value of the money you're perhaps spending on getting people to your website. It really just unearths all these insights before you've even run one A/B test on this is what our business looks like, and this is, we're strategizing against making this much money, and is it really off the mark? So that's kind of the tip one, right? Really the basis, the foundation of, where should we be testing on our website. The second point I would have said would be then to really drill into what are people visiting your website on? What does it look like? So really drill into the browsers and the experiences that people are having, to actually understand how much real estate do people actually visit us with. It's like, how big is my shop window theoretically? And the reason I say this is because how many people, when they start a new company, get a laptop, designers and such like. So everybody goes to work, they open their laptop, and then they start work, and this is where work is. But the reality is that's not where your customers are, or it might not be. I mean, unless you know, B2B or something like this. But go where your customers are, really, and experience it. Dog fooding is the term that we use for that. So it's like, I think it came from Microsoft. So it's eat your own product, essentially, is what it is. So in that sense, those are the two really major things that I would suggest that you do first in order to set up a really, really good strategy, and share those little nuggets of information around the company. Really evangelize those things, so you can say, hey, did you know that 88% of our sales come from iPhone 12? And half of that traffic is in Safari in-app. Because, I mean, it makes a real difference which browser they're in, because if it's an in-app browser, that's a different experience from a native browser. And then, if it's in an app, there might be smaller real estate because there's things that come over the top. So you really need to dig into all this kind of stuff and uncover it before you start trying to solve any problems or coming up with a hypothesis. It's you really understand that experience that your customers are having. And into that, as I mentioned, push out there that information, get it around everywhere. Just little nuggets of information. Just did you know this, that, and throw it around and get everybody involved. Like, I had no idea, and it starts to question the way we're approaching work. And then into that, once you've got a bit of excitement around those sort of things that people didn't realize, then you can start to put together a collab space. Miro, FigJam, something like this. I mean, I work fully remotely, so for me, those things are, an absolute necessity. And it's an amazing way to connect data together. So in that sense, then you can start putting your Clarity data, so your heat maps, your session recordings, Clarity, or heatmap.com is another one, which is quite good. That connects to revenue. I could definitely suggest that one. And then put those things up as a collab space and just start the conversation going around. Let's talk about data. What do we see? So in terms of getting experimentation set up, that's the starting ground that I would have said to really get noticed and embed it within the strategy of the company.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you so much for sharing such a strong foundation. And I definitely think a lot of what you said is perfect for kind of brands of all sizes. Like, these are all things to think about or revisit if you're struggling to figure out like where to go next with CRO. Sometimes going back to those basics and really understanding that customer journey might unearth some of those nuggets, like you said. And I really love what you said about trying to follow that user journey. Like, which browser are they on? What device? Because we see so many brands, so many people are like on the smartphone, but you don't know that for sure. Like, are they on their smartphone on the in-app browser? Are they on like a different thing? Like, the size, even on a smartphone, could be quite different on what someone's actually seeing. So I think that's a really good thing for brands to think about.
And it's so nuanced. That's the thing. It can
Mm-hmm.
mean so many different things. I mean, even down to your payment options.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a lot of iPhone users, you've got these express checkout buttons. That could be something that's really like, maybe that's useful because of the express checkout button. Really is like, bam, bam, bam,
Mm-hmm.
done, paid, and I'm a little bit late to sort of the game of a lot of these things because I'm a
Yeah.
little bit older than a lot of the audience out there at the moment, but I'm starting to see how that's really removed friction, and it's quite scary. You used to have to write a check
Yeah, yeah.
and put it in the post, and then it would take a week before the money came out of the bank. So these days, pop up, done, paid. So
Yeah.
it's phenomenal
That's why
what
we're called
technology
Click to
can do.
Buy on this podcast, because it's that fast.
Exactly, and a double click, and it's done. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
double
don't even
click and it's
notice.
done. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, maybe also touching on something like I know that you are an expert in quantitative and qualitative research, and especially for brands that might not have like enough traffic to do certain like testing significantly. I know qualitative data can be really helpful in figuring out kind of what direction to go in. So I was really curious how in your role or in previous roles you've had how you balance qualitative and quantitative insights in forming your strategy.
It's such a great question that I've been asked this more than once. And what you're looking at is one does feed the other.
Hmm.
But what people say and what they do are two entirely different things. NPS score, for example, is something that people might capture on their website. Well, yeah, I'd recommend you, but no, I'm not going to. You know, in theory, yeah, of course, but in reality, I never would because I just don't remember because you've asked me this question and I've forgotten about it. So I mean, it's intention. But to give you another story about the differences between the two, and especially in qual research,
Hmm.
Sony Walkman, this is quite old Walkman with tapes
That's
with
all right.
cassettes that used to go in. Back in my day, they used to
We
have
have a
cassettes that
vintage
they
tip
put in
right here.
the vintage tip right here. Trust me, I'll bring it up to date. They put cassettes in, you put the headphones on, you used to listen to music on these things. They ran a usability test. They invited people in to experience the new sport product, and it was very nice, and it was yellow. The original one was black, and they got amazing feedback. Oh no, absolutely, this would match with my pop socks and my
Hmm.
earmuffs. And, oh, this is still with my sweatbands, my yellow sweatbands. That is exactly what I'm looking for. This is such a wonderful product. And Sony said to the participants of the test on the way out, by all means, help yourself to a Walkman. Black one's on the left, yellow one's on the right. Nobody took a yellow one. So all the
Mm.
positive things that they said about this, it's like, yeah, but I don't really want it. So what people say and what they do is totally different. And what you're looking at there is a small cohort. So you can build a hypothesis based on that cohort. But that's why A/B testing is so valuable and so useful. That when you scale it up, that hypothesis, you'll really get to see, it did or it didn't work. And the reason it probably didn't work, possibly didn't work, is because of the cohort was biased. So you always have to
Hmm.
bear that in mind when you're asking people in surveys or any on sort of online feedback or in-person feedback. It's heavily biased depending on the situation. So if you can A/B test, you definitely should. If you have low traffic, make bigger changes in that instance. It's all about the visibility of something. What you can do is you can combine all these findings and roll all of those things out at once. So test multiple hypotheses at
Hmm.
once. If you're going to reach significance, I mean, if it doesn't work, you won't know which part of it didn't work. But if it does work well, it works. You can grow your business. That's the
Yeah.
idea. So yeah, you just be mindful of what you're seeing when it comes to qual testing. It's a tiny cohort. So yeah, that's my advice on quant and qual.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And as you said, you definitely brought it back to 2024 with your advice. So, although there was a vintage example, I would definitely say that advice is super relevant. Especially, I love this idea of kind of maybe you use a focus group or something like this to get the idea, but then you use the quantitative side to validate and figure out like how do people actually act? And do they act the way that they said they would? Maybe, maybe not.
Absolutely, or just try to think of a way of
Mm-hmm.
scaling up your qual research. So you've got an initial insight. Then what would it
Mm-hmm.
look like with another section of audience? And
Mm-hmm.
just to try to get like a different litmus test at different places, just to really think, no, we have got this right. So multiple tests with different types of audience, and really be aware of the biases that are that are relevant there. And one of the other things I think about as well is
Mm-hmm.
some of these user testing platforms. It's something to think about. Is if you are using those to get some initial insights, some of them, those people are not actually in that buying situation, and
Mm-hmm.
they're a participant on a platform where they get paid to answer certain questions. So it really needs to be sort of a relevant question at the relevant time to the relevant person. So really do sort of dig into it and think about the sort of answers that you might get back from the sort of person that you're asking, and just think, could this be done in a better way, a more relevant way, let's say, rather than somebody who's actually in a shopping situation on your website with a little, not takeover, but just a little pop-up like, is there everything on this page that you would have expected? Is there something missing? Actually, I was looking for that person's in that situation, and there you're capturing the actual problem rather than, does anyone have problems with this that gets paid on this particular platform? Oh well, I'm not really shopping for earplugs at this moment. But if I was, you see, there's a
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
there's a distinct difference there. So yeah, be mindful of that, I would say.
Absolutely. I think that's also a great example of how I know that pop-ups are overlays are sometimes a controversial topic, but I don't remember which other guest I had which suggested something like this as well. Like if you're going to do it, try to make it something that's going to give you information, something that you can use to help like improve things. So like if you're going to have like a little discount, what can you get from the customer so that like it's worth your while, so to speak? Like what else were you looking for? Okay, they're not buying today, but now I know that they were looking for this Loop earplug in Barbie pink, or I don't know, like something that's can maybe improve your strategy for trying to keep up improving that experience for all your customers who are the right fit or who are looking to buy in that same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about relevancy as well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult. It's difficult to get right. I think even involve copywriters that are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the size of your organization. Obviously, you can even test the way that you're putting your qual experiments out there. We got more
Mm-hmm.
responses from writing it this way than we did writing it this way. So always be testing and always improving
Mm-hmm.
on your process. And question everything.
Absolutely. So I would love to actually now hear if you're able to share an interesting test that you've run recently in your role or a previous role that maybe worked either really well or maybe something that didn't work as you expected.
Well, what I'm going to bring to the party here is every single experiment that you run, as long as it's well thought through,
Okay.
documented, backed up by data, is a successful experiment. You know an outcome to something that you have seriously thought about, that you have backed it up, and the better you get at the process, the better that you will understand the problems that people have coming to your website.
Mm-hmm.
That they want to solve a problem with your product. So no matter what it is that you're doing, it is a success. There's no such thing as failures. I want to
Mm-hmm.
set the record straight on CRO for
Setting
that
it
right
straight.
now. Yeah, absolutely. But then we can dip into something that I know that people enjoy. This kind of thing is the pain of paying, which is something that I've seen across multiple websites. And people don't really like the idea of losing money. So something that I've tested out on many websites is how you display what something costs. So numerically, pounds and pence, dollars and cents. So let's make it, international here. How you display that on your website per product really can have an influence on add to cart. So what I'm talking about is if you're showing the dollar sign, minimize that or don't show it at all. And make the cents a lot smaller than the dollars, because numerically speaking, it is smaller. So if you're showing in terms of perception something that looks like it's only $99.98, and then it's the 98 cents that's really small that somehow makes the price smaller perceptively. And we ran this test for 2 weeks, minimum of 2 weekends, and we got a statistically significant with 98%, 7% increase in add to cart. So that micro conversion there, just by making things smaller or not showing them at all in terms of the currency symbol, really can have an effect on your people's behavior around buying something. Experiment with color, experiment with the distance between the configurations, the numbers. Also, if you're doing discounts, experiment with the way the discount's displayed. Is the discount bigger and the real price, the new price, is even smaller? So there's many things that you can do around price perception, and that's one of the places that there's tools that you can use out there where that tracks human attention, and you'll see anytime you're on any website, the immediate thing, maybe the face first, human faces, then it's how much does it cost, and that's probably the two things in terms of a gaze plot. That's something else that you can look at, where human attention goes. And if you're that split second, it's like, that's not so expensive, then you may have captivated them. So that's something I would recommend having a look into, price perception.
Absolutely. I love what you said there about like the paid of pricing and how this is something that you tested because this is something where people have maybe some friction in the process. Like people don't want to be spending their money. Even sometimes that's like the last hurdle to get over. Like, oh, I really want this. But it's so interesting that just by making those changes to like the sizing and the way that the currency is displayed, you've found already something significant. So I'm super curious if hopefully other people out there maybe want to give this a try if they find that that's also something that is relevant for their audience and the friction points that they're finding in their user experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. And maybe we'll have to try to get like a screenshot or something to put in the blog so people can see what that looks like, having that kind of number sizing as you've described.
Sure, absolutely. That would be my pleasure. It's something, I mean, you can see it go and look on sort of websites, competitor websites. It's a very, very common thing to play around with in e-commerce.
Makes sense, since of course that's like the last little hurdle before hopefully someone is finishing their purchase.
Absolutely. I mean, also look into human biases. There's lists out there. You can build those into your CRO program so that you're testing against those things. I mean, we have a track on price perception on the pain of paying. That's something that we iterate upon that as a subject, let's say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that example. I'm curious because I love how we started this conversation as well. Like there are no kind of bad or unsuccessful tests. As long as you've run it, like that's a success and you're going to learn something from it. So I'm curious if there's any other kind of pitfalls that you've seen kind of companies that are trying to do CRO fall into, or maybe about CRO in general, kind of pitfalls or challenges that you've seen in the space.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think even the way that CRO is perceived, I think it's a totally split kind of perception. There's those that understand it's a part of experimentation, and those that think it's a silver bullet that one person can do. I'm sorry to burst the bubble. It's not. And we're not magicians, and it isn't magic. It's extremely hard work. And the more siloed CRO is, the more it's even a department. tells me that, yeah, there's something wrong with your process. One thing that I've also seen in many companies is there isn't really a growth strategy for CRO as a role, let's say. You will hit the ceiling in many companies very quickly. Because it's, I mean, if your interview, let's say, and you want a new CRO job, yeah, this is one of those things. So where do you see my role in 3 years' time? Yeah, the answer's quite often not there, which sort of gives you an idea about what the pitfalls of CRO are, because essentially CRO should be embedded in everything that everybody does. This is where it turns into experimentation. This is what Booking.com did. Every single person is involved in CRO. Every single person is there to solve an identified, quantified customer problem in as quick as time as possible, so that it returns on that investment of time. That's why you're at work. So if you hear best practice, low hanging fruit, and let's copy competitors, you need to have some talks, because those things those are the buzzwords that ring alarm bells for me. It's really about learning the needs and understanding your customers on your website and the problems that they have, and doing that as a team and breaking it open and breaking it wide open to the whole organization. To me, those would be the pitfalls. If you hear any of those terms that are thrown around, try to break down silos as best you can, because silos is a real killer.
Absolutely. I'm curious if you have any tips for, like, could be in your personal experience, like how to really encourage or foster that, like building relationships with CRO to other parts of the company, or like working successfully together.
Actually, we did a process which I've never done before. I mean, we've done a few of them. I don't want to say it's like a personality test, but that's sort of what it is. We did one with Loop, and I don't know a huge amount about it, but it's called DISC,
Yes, I've done it.
DISC, DISC. And it was so good, because it makes you realize the sort of people that you're working with. Yeah, I mean, if you've done it, you understand. It's kind of amazing how it's better than horoscopes. I'll give you
It
that.
definitely is, yes.
But yeah, it really gives you a good idea on how to communicate with one another, and how people communicate with you, and vice versa. See people need all the details and a bit of space and time. So I could, definitely recommend any companies out there that have not done this sort of process to get together as in a team building exercise to really fully understand what types of people we're dealing with. And then when things sort of it's like, yeah, this is me being super D again.
Yeah.
Direct, to the point, go, go, go. And I'm talking to a C person. It's like, hold back. They need the details. So something like that, yeah, I would really, really recommend it. It's a fantastic fantastic framework. But in and above that, I think, as I mentioned, to break this sort of nut open around customer experience, is to get people involved in the problem solving. I think you need to love the problem as a CRO expert, not the solution. And I find this happens all too often in a lot of companies. It's like, here's a solution to this problem, which I didn't really identify was even a problem. So I really love the notion of data, findings, and insights. So work together with the data analysts on answering the questions that you have. Why are people here? What are they doing here? What does this mean? So right back at the top that we'd mentioned about the reverse funnel tree, and you're seeing, not so much conversions, very high traffic on this page, average order value. That's interesting. Work together with the data analyst on that. Together with them. What does this mean? I don't understand it. Data analyst could probably be a C type person. So, you'll get all the details. And then turn that into findings. And those findings are then what you put into the ideation session to bring in the developers, to bring in the designers, the copywriters, and say, well, people are clicking here in the checkout process. Why are they clicking there? What do you think they're expecting? That way, then you can open up the problem to people that are really good at solving those things. Well, if we had a pop up and it wouldn't, oh, well, that's not a redirect. That's great. That, and then the developers get involved, and everybody then can to work together on a cohesive solution, which then you go and get insights. So data, findings, insights. Those three things, and then it just loops back around because you've got data on your insights and whether it works. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, I think collaboration works. I've seen it work extremely well once you've really got everybody together, and you've got people to sort of glue the team together. With this sort of stuff, and then the people feel empowered. I mean, you're bringing them in to solve problems, and then it's the A/B test run. So how do you get them involved in A/B testing? They want to know that design has improved the customer experience rather than just design. I've designed it. Yeah, next design. I've designed it. They're not involved in that way. So yeah, this framework, this way of working, really, I mean, people enjoy working like this, is from what I've seen. So yeah, that's my advice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love how you coupled kind of the personal element, which is kind of understanding who you're working with better. That way you can build on that relationship and also figure out how to get them excited. Like maybe someone from a certain part of the disc really values like just the relationship side. So just having for them a win is just getting more of these like teamwork opportunities, whereas someone else is more like numbers oriented, seeing like, okay, you did this and then it gave this impact on the company bottom line. They're going to be like, I love that. Like, I'm going to prioritize Dave's tasks whenever he asks for a request because I know that he's going to tell me exactly like what happened or how I contributed. So I love how you kind of brought those two sides together, because I know a lot of CROs out there saying that like they feel like having it in a silo is often detrimental to what they're actually trying to achieve. And you've clearly echoed that message here today. Well, Dave, I could ask you probably a million more questions, so we might have to have you on for a follow-up episode.
No
But
worries.
unfortunately, we're reaching the end of this episode. And before we go, I want to know what, of course, this is click to buy. So we always want to end with our click-worthy tip. This could be something a little clickbaity, a little bit of a hook or a nice little phrase to end on. So I would love to know from you, what is one phrase, word, or piece of advice you have to people who are trying to improve their customer journey?
I've got 3 bullet points. I hope that's short
Right.
enough. Okay.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. We'll go through it.
Where is it going wrong? Why is it going wrong? And what should we do to fix it?
Boom. There you go. That needs
Yeah.
to be written on the mirror or maybe as a nice little screensaver to people out there who are trying to figure out this exact problem.
I'll get that printed on some CRO t-shirts, my friends, and go to work
Absolutely.
and keep biting at
Absolutely.
it.
We love it. Well, Dave, thank you so much for all of your invaluable advice today. I certainly learned a lot, so I hope everyone tuning in has as well. Of course, I know where to find you, but in case anyone listening wants to learn more tips from you, or whether it be website or, as we mentioned, personal optimization tips, where's the best place to find you online?
Well, I have my own website, as you would think
Okay,
you would.
you would
It's
think so.
called look-ux.com. And you can find me also on LinkedIn. I will tag along with people like Shiva Manunath, Lucia van der Brink, Craig Sullivan, Manuel da Costa. If you connect to one of those, yeah, it's the best community. So
Yes.
yeah, hopefully I'll see you on LinkedIn or contact me through my website.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll be sure to link that in our show notes, follow-up blog. That way, if anyone wants to get those tips, you know where to find them. Again, if you're still listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I wouldn't be a good marketer if I didn't remind you to please like and subscribe or leave a review so we know what to talk about in the next few episodes so I can keep making these even better and better for the audience. So again, I'm Becca coming to you from your host, Instant Page Builder here. And until next time, keep turning those clicks into buys.